Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here, and I remember what it was like being in your position right now, crunching. So thank you so much for joining my talk. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and let's see, share sound, optimize, share. Okay. Can you guys see
I'd
my
like to
screen
point
okay?
out to, yes, we do see it. I'd also like to point out to folks in the audience that Brittany's hoping for a little bit more of an interactive talk, even though we're in webinar mode. If you want to talk and say
Yes.
something, just raise your hand and we'll use the allow to talk feature in the participant list. And, you can give your comments on the fly if you wish. So, Brittany, yeah, there you go. If you can remove that upper portion of your interface up there.
Yeah, let's see. How do I do that?
You had it. You
Oh,
had
here we
it.
go. All right. Cool. All right. So yeah, thanks for the intro, Brian. Previz artist. I'm currently at DreamWorks Animation. I did a very short stint at Nickelodeon before rejoining DreamWorks last year. I worked on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for a hot second on a sequence for that film before going over to DreamWorks. And before that, I was actually teaching at, like Brian said, at the University of Hawaii Manoa. I was the 3D animation professor of 3D animation there. And then I was there for 4 years. Prior to that, I was at DreamWorks for 8 years, working on various projects. I started out in production management, and then I transitioned into a Previz rough layout position. And then and I did that on Me and My Shadow. So I worked in production management on, this Monsters versus Aliens, Mutant Pumpkins from Outer Space TV show, Kung Fu Panda 2 Turbo. And then for a hot moment, I was the guinea pig for a new role, which is an animation TA, where basically I was rig wrecking. So it was just testing out rigs before they would go into production. So I actually got to work very closely with Fred Nilsson, who I know is now at Epic and doing wonderful things, I know. And I think he already gave you guys a talk. So I'm sure that was just pure gold. And then, yeah, after that, back into Previz. So yeah, like I mentioned, got to work with students, which was super fun, and taught like basics of 3D animation. So if I have time, I can talk about some basic principles, but we'll see if we get there. But yeah, I was in I think it was the version 2 fellowship right after the pilot. So back in the summer 2022, and we had the subject of a sequence. So our prompt was to make a chase sequence. So of course, just like I think probably similar, you guys, we were provided with the Echo character and assets, and then we were kind of free to do whatever. So of course, like all the camera work, the mocap, I found through primarily Nixamo, and then we did actually have access to some mocap artists through the fellowship, stitch everything together, and then also did very little keyframe animation as well. But I'll just go ahead and play this. It's only a minute. So yeah, here we go. So that's that. So yeah, I think for our fellowship, the pilot before us, I think they had 6 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, and then we were 4 weeks. And then after us, I think, everyone at Epic was like, hey, let's increase the weeks to 5. So, but I know that always feels like not enough time. So yeah, while I was doing the fellowship, I was currently working on a short animated film called Manō. And I was at that time working in Maya, and basically there were a lot of hurdles that I was encountering that I was really nervous about. And then of course, and I knew nothing about Unreal Engine prior to the fellowship. And then of course, after being exposed to it, I was super excited about transitioning the film into Unreal. And of course, it did indeed solve every single issue that I was facing when using Maya. So yeah, I want to give some shout outs because I know some of these people who worked on my film are here in the fellowship: Jessica, Carol, Gabrielle, and then some other fellows that were in the fellowship, either in my cohort or after. Anne, Kim, Brendan, Carol, Laura, and Kat was in my fellowship. So here's just the trailer for the film. So it's basically, I'll talk more about the challenges later, because basically what I'd like to talk about in this is advanced skeleton, and then kind of about the film and some of the challenges I faced. So here is the trailer for the film. All right, so advanced skeleton. I know you guys, I think, are wrapping up very soon, so sorry this is coming a bit late, but hopefully for future projects that you're working on, this might come in handy. But I really wanted to share this because this is what I used to rig my characters on my film, and it was just amazing. So basically it's just a script, and what is lovely is you can now, that developer created a script where you can actually export control rigs from Maya into Unreal, and that control rig also has backwards solve. So you can check out on the Advanced Skeleton Facebook page, YouTube, there's lots of videos. And of course, if depending on what kind of license you get, you can also get a lot of support from the developer. And you know, I just wanted to share this. It's not like I'm getting any kind of kickbacks at all. I just really, really like this script, but it is free for independent filmmakers and students. And for those who are at a studio and might be interested in using it in a studio, you can see, you know, it's really very affordable. So yeah, so let me hop over to Maya. So you saw in the trailer that the scene of the fisherman with the shark passing by. So what I would like to do is show you how I can export this rig, which was done in Advanced Skeleton. So this is the menu for Advanced Skeleton. I'm certainly not going to go through how to rig. There is a little bit of a learning curve, but it is actually very quick and easy once you kind of get it down. But you basically are just following like through this menu and kind of getting your rig set up. You can see how you can even check like a game engine option, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, what I had done is I had, you know, kind of in Unreal, I did some previs originally for the film. It's one camera, one long camera shot throughout the whole thing, except for there's one cut at the end. So that was one huge challenge that Unreal helped solve, that I was worried about with Maya, because I could actually accomplish that one long camera in Engine. So I had done the previs in Unreal, and then I exported the camera back to Maya, and then, you know, did all the animation in Maya, and then exported that into Unreal. So basically, if I want to bring in this fisherman now and export that to Unreal, what I would do is in the rig setup, you have some different folders, but basically in the deformation system is where that skeleton exists, the root skeleton. So I select that root and then I control click the geometry, and then I'll come up and select hierarchy. And that of course selects everything in those two groups. And then I will go to File, Export Selection. Let me bring over my menu here. So I want to make sure, of course, it's an FBX export. And I will say Fisherman Rig Demo. And then in terms of export settings, I do like under the geometry section, check smoothing groups. I don't need to turn on animation because right now, oh, actually, you know what? I do need to stop for a second. I'm getting ahead of myself. This is just the animation. So I could go ahead while I'm at it, I'll export the animation, but I also want to export just the rig itself. So since I have to open another file and this might take a minute, I'm going to do this now. So I will go ahead and just export this animation for this character. I'll take this in my menus. Here we go. All right, so this is going to be the fisherman and demo. All right. So again, just kind of checking my export settings. I will turn on animation in this case, and I want to make sure it's exact time range. 10. Cool. And then keep all this stuff checked. The one thing I do check, I think by default this is unchecked, but this should theoretically bring over some of your textures. One thing I will uncheck is input connections. So then I can go ahead and click on export selection, and that is going to go through and bake and export this animation. Cool. Okay. So it should be done soon. I'm also praying, last night when I was kind of getting all this set up, I got the blue screen of death. So I'm just really hoping that happens during this demo. Okay, cool. So I got this little guy with warnings, but I'm not worried about it. Okay, so now I'm actually going to go ahead and open up the rig file. So this one, I'll save. Okay, so rig in its default position is what we're looking for just to export the skeleton. So I'm going to go into that main controller, go into the deformation system group, select the root, select the geometry, select the hierarchy, and then file export selection, and I'll call this fisherman rig demo. And then in this case, I do not need to export animation, so I can just uncheck that. And also, again, input connections is off, so that's great. Export selection. Cool. All right. So now, if I jump over to Unreal, I can go ahead and start importing this character, applying this animation, and then we can, I'll show you how to actually export a control rig from using Advanced Skeleton. So I'm going to make a folder. I'll call this Fisherman, and I'll make another folder. Another folder for the rig. Then I'll import the rig. So that's just a demo. So I'm going to import this guy. And in this case, I'm just going to keep all the kind of default settings here. All this looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and click on import all. Okay. So I have my character. He's not going to be textured at all, but that's okay. I have another, I cheated and I have the other one in here with textures. But just so you can kind of see what's going on, I'll get all this stuff out of the way. Okay. So I have my character. So now, and the rig. So now I'll import the animation. So I want this anim demo. I'll click open. And there are a couple things to kind of keep in mind in this case. I don't need to import the mesh. So I'll uncheck that. And then I'm going to choose the skeleton that I just imported. And then here, I'm just going to kind of look through and make sure. Okay, so at least when I was working on my film, there were sometimes, even though my project in Maya was set to 24 frames per second, I exported at that rate. Sometimes it would have a different frame rate. So I have gotten into the habit of changing that to 24, just to force it to make sure it's 24. By default, everything's going to be zeroed out down here. But at least for the advanced skeleton, I don't know if it's just this rig or what, but I do have to add the 90-degree import rotation on X. So I will go ahead and import this animation. I double click on this. Let's see, there's my animation. Hooray. All right, so cool stuff. So now if I jump back into Maya and I go into this advanced skeleton script, under the export section, there's this control rig export. So if I just click on this button, it's going to tell me, basically it needs to convert the joint base space to blend shapes for the control rig. So it's just saying, hey, you need to do this. So go ahead and hit OK. I'm using 5.1 right now. So you can do it for, if you have an older version, or 5 or 5.1. Anyway, you choose whichever version you're using. So I'll hit OK. And then I will come over here. So it's going to be exporting this Python script. So I'm just going to call this fisherman control rig. And then hit save. Okay. Now, when I come back to Unreal, I am going to go back to my rig and select that skeletal mesh, right click on it. And actually, real quick, let me just hit save all. I'll call this live demo. Cool. All right. So I'm going to right click on my skeletal mesh, go to create control rig. All right, so here's this control rig. I'm going to double click on it to open it up. Okay, here we go. So I need to, you can see this is all set up, for all of that logic, right? Which I don't have. So I'm going to uncheck this button, auto compile, because if that's on, when you run the script, it can just take a really long time, is my understanding. So with that deselected, I'm going to make sure I have my control rig selected, go up to tools and go to this execute Python script. And then I'm going to choose that Python script and hit open. And it's going to be working under the hood. And you'll see it populate the logic. And then you can also check your output log when it's finished. Okay, cool. So here's all that logic that's applied for the control rig. And if I open up my output log, you can see control rig created. Success. So.
Hey, Brittany, I see a question coming in from Jesse.
Oh.
Go ahead, Jesse, you're allowed to talk.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Brittany. With this script, is it if the is it does it work well with like does it have any issues with like let's say you have it's still a biped, but like maybe the proportions are a little bit bigger or whatnot, or is it usually?
Oh, I
you
mean, in
can't-
terms, if it's a, I mean, it can work. Actually, I haven't tested it with a quad. Certainly bipeds work, and I don't think it really matters at all. Actually, wait a minute. It does work with quads, because for instance, I know that Chris L used it on his current project in this fellowship. His is, wait, no, his is based on biped, sorry. I haven't tested for quad, but yes, for bipeds it works. It really shouldn't matter like your proportions, because it's going to just create the control rig based on the rig proportions. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, yes.
Cool.
Thank you.
Brittany, can you also check to see if your optimized for video is on or off?
Oh, don't use it. Okay, here, let me stop share and
No, you don't.
Oop.
You don't have to do that. There is a
Oh.
feature under the 3 dots that you can turn it
Got
off. But go ahead, try again.
Try again. Here we go. Am I
That's-
sharing again?
Yeah, and
Is
that
that
looks
clearer?
very nice. Looks great.
Oh, that's a good tip. Thank you so much. Okay, cool. So, back, I don't know where all this stuff went. So yeah, here's all that logic, which is fantastic. It figures all that out for you. So now I can click on compile and save. And so now, of course, I can drag my control rig into the scene and work. But what I'd like to do is show you how to import that animation and then use the backward solve to edit the animation with control rig. You know what, really quick, just because he is not very pretty right now, I wouldn't mind, just so we can see it better. I'm going to steal the shaders from my other one. So, okay, cool. Just so we can kind of see it a little better. All right, so now I will just go ahead and make a level sequence. Human and okay. And I will add my character and I'll go ahead and add the animation. Cool. So here is that whole track that I exported from Maya. Beautiful. Okay. So all that's working great. So let's say now I have it, you know, I have this animation now in Unreal and I want to make some edits. Because for instance, let's take a look. His knee starts to kind of crash into his leg. So we can kind of go through and fix it with use the control rig. So if I select the track, right click, go to bake to control rig, and here's my control rig that I created. And here's my prompt over here. So I'm going to click on reduce keys. If you don't do that, it's going to set a keyframe on every single key, on every single frame rather. So reduce keys, of course, will make that a little bit cleaner. So I'll just do it for now and I'll click create. Oh, cool. Thanks. Lily is saying he tried it with the dragon and the back IK legs had some issues, but he's sure there's a solution. Didn't have time to figure out. Okay, cool. That's good to know. All right. So yeah, here is my character now. All the keys have been applied and now I can edit to my heart's delight with control rig. So, you know, now I can kind of come in and play around with just editing these keys. I don't need to necessarily do that in front of you guys. But just, you know, you can kind of get the gist of it. Actually, I might want to move So we kind of just start somewhere. I usually kind of like delete keys and soften things up in the curve editor. But that's kind of the gist that I wanted to share with you. You know, especially if you have your own characters that you want to use. I really enjoyed using this on my own film. So hopefully that will be helpful to you all for your, I don't know if it'll be relevant for your projects now. I think you're probably almost done, but hopefully it'll help out with any kind of future projects. Any questions about this? Okay, I see a raised hand. How do
I got it. No worries.
Oh, thanks.
Go ahead, Solomon.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, hi.
Yeah. Hi, Brittany. Thank you so much. You don't know what you just did to me. Like, I have an animated series. All our characters are rigged using advanced skeleton rig.
Oh my gosh.
And-
Well, you
and
just
yeah,
chicken.
so I'm so grateful that this came. I know it came at the end, but for me, it has just opened up a whole new world. And so we have a god character as well, and we use advanced skeleton rig. But what I'm curious about is the facial animation.
Yes.
Is it possible to use live link in here after you import that facial rig as well?
I'm
Because it
pretty
is yeah,
sure
sorry.
I'm pretty sure you can. I have not done it myself. However, if I come over here, advanced skeleton YouTube, I see, I mean, even just when I looked the other day, like you can take metahuman and apply, so you can take metahuman and apply an advanced skeleton rig to it, and then be able to use the facial animation and do it that way. So there's like tons of different videos on how you can do facial animation for your character. So I'm pretty sure it would work. I just personally haven't done it myself, so I can't speak to that. But I would definitely kind of go through and check out some of these videos. And again, depending on your license, you should also, like, I mean, basically, if you pay for a license, you have access and you can reach out to the developer and anytime with questions, and they'll be able to help you out.
Thank you so much.
And also, just while I'm on this YouTube page, if you come to this Unreal 5 and also export to Unreal Control Rig, it's literally what I just showed you. And then there's also in this Unreal 5 one, there's a lot of other bonus things that it'll show you that you can utilize with Advanced Skeleton in Unreal. So yeah, any other questions? Oh yeah, you do have to convert to blend shapes. Yes. Okay.
Go ahead, Izzy. You're free to talk.
Hi, Brittany. Thanks, Brian.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, I can.
Hi, Brittany. I was wondering, skinning, would you strictly do that in Maya, or have you tried that, like shape fixes and things like that? Have you tried to do that in Unreal?
Oh no, I've only done that in Maya. And I will actually speak to something, and this might be common knowledge, but at least when I was learning how to do all this stuff, it was not clear to me, but like when you are skinning a character, you can't use things like Delta Mush. So when I originally rigged my characters with Advanced Skeleton, I used Delta Mush, and that just does not work in game engines. So I basically had to go back and like re-rig everything. So, but I'll also kind of talk about that in a moment. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, of course. Oh, Willie says maybe in 5.3 you can do that. That'd be cool.
Yeah, there is a skeleton editor and waiting in 5.3.
Oh, right on. Okay, great. Cool. Oh. Okay, so Nikhil says, save some time at the end to talk about Previz and how if UE fits into that pipeline and to what extent it does. That's my okay, absolutely, yeah. For sure. Where did I get the Python script? So the Python script was completely generated from Advanced Skeleton. So, I had the script already installed in Maya, and I literally just clicked on control rig export, and it generated that Python script that I've been importing into Unreal. So it was just through Advanced Skeleton. Cool. So I'll pop back into the rest of my kind of talk, and then hopefully I'll nail your question, Nikhil. All right. So, yeah, so I kind of want to just talk a little bit about the transition to Unreal for Maya and why it was just so incredibly huge on my project, and definitely some big learning lessons. So obviously I was working with a shark, and that involves water. And I'm sure, as you know, in Maya, you're not going to see that in real time. And so originally when I was trying to get that to work in Maya, I would wait, over 24 hours to get like a couple seconds worth of animation rendered, only to see that like my shark is floating above the water, kind of his back is sticking out. So it was getting really frustrating, and I wasn't sure how I was really going to accomplish that. And then of course, in Unreal, you can see everything real time. So you can see all those effects in water right there. What you see is what you get. So that was absolutely a game changer for me. I did find a fantastic blueprint that I used for the water system in my film, and that was Aquatic Surface. So, yeah, there was a lot of things that I used from the marketplace as well. The other thing that was huge for me is, as I mentioned, I had it's all one shot, except for the very end, there's like one cut. And so basically the concept of the film is every time you go above and below the water, you cut hundreds of millions of years as you're kind of following this shark from prior to the Hawaiian Islands being formed up into modern day. And the idea is that it's showing, how huge of an impact humans have made on sharks. They've been around for millions of years, and now they are threatened with extinction because of our doing. So it's basically kind of just showing the shark's journey through time. And you're also kind of seeing in the film the progression of, you're first kind of seeing the underwater scene is very vibrant, full of fish, and there's lots of sharks. And then the reef is vibrant and healthy. And then kind of as we kind of get into current day, we're seeing more pollution, we're seeing less fish, less variety and diversity, less sharks, etc. And so I am jumping through a lot of different locations. Like every time I'm above water, you're seeing kind of a different location. So definitely was using, actually here, I will also kind of pop over and show you my project. So was using level visibility to kind of jump and show certain, it would kind of load and unload different maps for the different environments. So that was huge, because there was no way like Maya could handle that. It would constantly crash if I tried to do any of that. And yeah, so basically this is all one camera that eventually like we split into shots just to make it easier for rendering. But yeah, each different location, it's getting loaded and unloaded. So that was huge, using that kind of spawnability from the engine. Yeah, so cool. Let's see. Okay, so in terms of learning lessons, asset ingestion. So I mentioned like you can't use any deformers like Delta Mush when you're rigging. There was a good solid week where I was just banging my head against the wall, because when I would import my animation, it would not line up with my reference that I had in Unreal. So basically, hopefully this will start to answer your question, Nikhil, but I did previs the whole film in Unreal first, and then would kind of export key location points. So like you saw in that Maya file, you just saw the rock and like a piece of coral. So I at least had like a grounding of where I was in space. And then the characters animated in Maya just at that time, because I was, trying to get it through more quickly. Now I would love to try and go back and actually like use more control rig and animate with control rig. And then, yeah, so I was just seeing that when I exported the animation in Maya into Unreal, the character was not lining up, and I'll show you an image of what that looked like. So I figured out it's because that main controller of the advanced skeleton rig had rotations on it. So you have to just make sure all your rotations are zeroed out on that main controller, or it's not going to line up. And that was really frustrating. Also, there's an options box when you import for force front x-axis. You want to make sure that's off, because that will swap world coordinates and make everything not line up. As I mentioned, for some reason, I'm really not sure why this was happening, but when I would import animation, even though it was exported, like created at 24 frames per second, exported, imported with 24 frames, or imported, but for whatever reason, it would sometimes change it to like 30 frames per second. So I would just start, putting in 24 in that custom sample rate, and that seemed to fix it. And then, I had an amazing team to work with on the film, again, thanks to the mega grant for that. And so we did not use Perforce. We were actually just working in this project, not using Perforce or source control. And so it was a little tricky, but I can kind of talk through how we did that. So yeah, this was something, like I mentioned, I didn't know, but when I was first kind of getting the character set up, the characters looked really faceted and blocky. So I just had to use, like, for me, what worked best was mesh smooth. Maybe there's other ways that are less heavy or whatever, but this is what worked for me, as well as making sure that when you export the characters, when you export the FBX, smoothing groups and smooth mesh are checked on. And yeah, if you are using Delta Mush, you can see, it might be kind of hard to see, but it's just like the rig, once it starts to form, it just starts completely breaking and getting like really, I don't know, just completely broken. So I had to go back and use, actually just Maya's Bake Deformations tool worked for me. Yeah. And then, of course, we had just animating from Maya to Unreal. I had the issues of things lining up. So just want to jump ahead to kind of show you what that looks like. So basically, this would be like my reference shark, and then it would just kind of be floating above it. And it was weird. It was just kind of almost like mirroring it, but floating above it. And so that's when I realized, okay, I need to make sure, and what I mean by that is I need to make sure I already closed the file, shoot. But this main controller, these rotations just have to be set to 0. So you can, of course, like have rotations through like the root or something like that, but the actual main controller, no rotations, or you will run into lots of headaches. Okay. And nah, I mean, this one, I was just basically in this, I had this little video where I was showing how I had the fins. So basically there's guys cutting off the fins of the sharks, getting those to line up, because the fin is not actually bound in the rig. It's just a group within the hierarchy. So when you import that into Unreal, it's not gonna, it's not going to show up at all. So I had to import that as a separate asset. And what I did in Maya was I baked out the animation and then just imported that into Unreal, and then they just lined up together. So that was kind of like the workaround for that. In terms of the collaboration with a team without source control. So basically one person, I was that person, had like the master project. And so when other people had work to add, it would just kind of, I would take those assets and then add it into the master project. So I would share a zipped UE project, and I already had, the master sequence is already set up. So it already had all the different subsequences that I was working with, or subscenes. I guess they call them subsequences now. And everything was already there. So it was just a matter of if someone was going to go in and edit one of those subsequences, I would then, they would send me that one U asset of that subsequence, and then I would copy and paste that literally just like in my file explorer into the correct hierarchy folder of my project. And then when I opened up the Unreal, everything would be there. Excuse me. So of course it was important on my end to make sure I was constantly like backing up my files so I didn't accidentally overwrite something that I didn't mean to or want to. So lots of backing up on my end. But yeah, if there was a new like subsequence or something that someone was working on, like for instance, someone worked on the ground planes. So she would set up her own level and do all of her work. And then she would share that level with me, and then I would import that into the project, and then everything would kind of sync up. So hopefully you don't have to necessarily work that way, but it was possible. Just, yeah, just so you know. So yeah, I think that was mainly it. I can go into like talking about like just basic animation principles, but I'm also happy to kind of open it up at this point and just have a dialogue and see what you guys want to talk about.
It sounds like a plan.
Okay.
So why don't we go ahead and we'll stop the sharing and we'll just kind of open up the floor for discussion. I have some questions for you too.
Yes.
But let's take a look and see what we have here for open questions. Anonymous writes, what would be the best pipeline if someone was not using advanced skeleton? Can a rig in Maya or Blender transfer over into Unreal?
I mean, I'm assuming so, but I don't have the experience of doing that. I mean, well, yes, you can. I mean, even with what's her name? Echo, even with Echo's rig, right? That was an advanced skeleton rig. That was her own rig setup. So it's just about selecting the entire rig hierarchy and the geometry, and then exporting that animation as an FBX. I believe that's the workflow as well in general for other rigs.
Back in the day, back in like 4.17 through 4.20, we utilized a plugin from Maya that was written by Epic folks called ART, A-R-T, Advanced Rigging Toolkit. And the ART script allowed you to create a control rig or create a rig inside of Maya that was compatible with SK Mannequin's forward kinematic skeleton. So you could animate in Maya and use the export tools, and it would bring that into Unreal Engine. And it was a much more, very simplified process. I wrote a whole white paper on it. If you want to take a look at that, let me know. It's still online. You can find it. I'll try to get a link for it for folks if you're interested. Let's see here. We have Willie says maybe the Delta Mush with a new ML deformer. Haven't tried that yet. Yeah, perhaps. I don't know. I haven't tried it
Not
yet
sure
either.
either.
Anonymous also writes, how or where did you set up the level visualizer?
Are you asking about like the level visibility tracks? Is that what you mean by level visualizer?
Possibly.
I'm going to assume that's what they mean.
Okay, go ahead.
So yes, okay. So here, let me get out of this and back into Unreal. All right, so all these guys. So basically, you just add track, level visibility track. And then once you add the level visibility track, it's going to be just, let me move all this. Sorry, that's your questions. It's just going to be this track that says, visible. So you have to right click it and go to properties. And in here, you click plus, and then this is where you add like your actual level name. So levels. So I can like grab these any of these levels. I can click these and drag them and drop them into it. So now it's showing, these as visible, but let's say I don't want them visible, I can make them hidden. And so you can see actually right here, it's hiding a bunch of junk. But yeah, that's how you can play around with that level visibility track.
Let's switch to a live question from Peter. Go ahead, Peter.
Stop share.
Hey, I keep asking pretty much the same question to everybody. So, you know, having gone through this and having worked at DreamWorks, can you imagine using Unreal for a project, you know, a feature-length project at DreamWorks? Do you think that's feasible at this point?
I mean, I'm not here to speak for or represent DreamWorks in any way.
No, okay, that's fine. That's fine. Let's just say a feature film, not from DreamWorks, just from somebody.
Yeah, I mean, look, I made a short film in Unreal, and yes, I was using Maya at the time, but I would totally, for my next film, I would absolutely try to do it all in Unreal. Especially, you know, as the tools for control rig are getting so much better. The animation and engine is getting also a lot better. And again, I know like Fred recently joined, and I know he's doing a lot already to kind of make it friendly for animators, because he himself is an animator too. So yeah, I mean, I would totally, at least personally for my own next personal project, I would absolutely use Unreal fully.
All right, that's what I needed to hear.
Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and we'll remove permission to talk there. Let's go back to a written question from Cameron. From your experience, what are the most desirable skill sets that are difficult to find in the animation industry right now? How does that translate specifically to the Unreal Engine pipeline?
Ooh. Yes. I mean, I don't know. I just kind of feel like everything is turning to, you know, animation, especially for feature animation. It's always been very much like you are a specialist in like this one kind of area. And so I do think kind of being a generalist is very helpful. And I think the UE pipeline is very much like a generalist using that pipeline. It's like their best friend, right? Because they can do a little bit of everything and they know enough to be dangerous in all the different areas. So, I mean, I guess like diversifying your skill sets. So if you are an animator, maybe understanding rigging more, or vice versa, or again, you know, I work in Previz, so I like to, and I consider myself a generalist. I know a little bit about everything, enough to kind of get stuff done. So it's just now about kind of like pushing that. And I think with Unreal, you can kind of take things to that next level because everything's already there in Engine, and I mean, with the real-time workflows. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
I think so. All right. Let's go ahead and one more written question here. What were the gotchas when creating the Python script from Advanced Skeleton? When I've tried using the rig, when I've tried it, the rig gets partially built in UE and then stops. Any suggestions?
I have not run into issues like that. I guess luckily in my case, it's always been really straightforward. So I would just double check all of your, here, let me share my screen again. I would just double check all of your export settings for your rig. I'll move this to the side. So like, because okay, if I click anytime for the advanced skeleton tool, if you click on the question marks, it kind of gives you a prompt of like what to expect. So like, you know, here it is kind of telling you, you need to select the deformation system, the geometry, you know, select that hierarchy. And then it's also telling you here to uncheck input connections. I mean, it's weird. I don't know if you did if you did the FBX export by using the engines button, but for some reason, when I do it, I don't love it. I don't know why. I don't know if it's like, I don't. So basically what I'm trying to say is I don't even use this FBX export button. I always do it manually, just by like what I showed you guys. It's like selecting those two assets, or sorry, those hierarchies, and then say select hierarchy. And then I manually do that export and double check all my settings. And, you know, just again, let me move this out of the way, file export selection. In my case, what has seemed to work is, you know, smoothing groups turned on, smooth mesh, you know, that's on by default. I guess at that point, you're not really doing animation, it's just for the rig. So double check that input connection is not turned on. So I don't know, I would just say maybe double check that information. But unfortunately I haven't run into it myself, so I don't know, I'm not quite sure. I'm sorry, I can't really help you there.
No problem. Go ahead, Lucas, you're allowed to talk.
Yeah. Hold on. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Oh, hi, Brittany.
Hi there.
Good. Thank you for sharing your experience and your knowledge in the industry. I think somebody pretty much asked you a similar question, but I just want to confirm something. So pretty much during this fellowship, we have been exposed to amazing animation tools, control rig, and how to create stories in Unreal Engine. Okay, so I understand. I use Maya, and I've been using Maya for a while, but to be honest, like rigging and keyframing animation is being like, okay, that's something like no, right? So based on your experience, so let's say that we are brand new ideas, brand new studio, we should just go straight to use control rig, to do animation, and only use Maya to create the bone system and to do the skinning, right? Just to keep it simple and something that it works. What do you reckon?
I mean, I can only say what I did, and that's what I did.
Yeah.
Now I know, so Brian, you were saying that they are creating like a system where you can like rig and do all the skinning in Engine though?
That's
but
correct.
that's just not available yet?
5.3, the skeleton editor has been introduced. So
Okay. So, I mean, yeah, that's exactly what I did, what you just described, but I'm sure, you know, as, you know, different versions and releases are generated, that all that's going to be accomplished so that you can literally do everything in Engine. But yeah, for now, that's how I would do it.
If somebody says to you like, all right, Brittany, you know, this is the project, but we want to do it 100% in Unreal Engine, will you feel comfortable to just move forward that direction and only use Maya to pretty much, I don't know. I'm trying to see what is your feedback, just to use Unreal, let's say it, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I would, just because I used it for my film. So yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
all right, let's go to Rashib. Go ahead.
Hey, Brittany, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi there.
Hello. I had a question about your film.
Yes.
So you said there was like a one shot, like the whole camera move.
Yes.
In your level sequencer, I see there's a multiple shots. So are you like lining up camera animation from one to another? And also you're turning the levels on and off. So I'm curious, did you ever encounter any like light flickering or some rendering issues with that?
So here, let me share my screen again. So, okay, so originally this was one, you can see how they all say shot 20_7, 8, etc. So this was all originally one shot. And then I think these are, yeah, oh yeah, because it fades to black and then it cuts to this new shot. And then this is the one cut other than it fading to black that you see in the film. So this was all one track. And so basically, that's been a while. And also, let's see. I think it was just, so I might need Gabriel to hop on because he also was like VFX soup on this film. And I know he helped a lot, especially with like getting all this to render correctly. Is Gabriel here by chance?
I'm not sure if he's here.
Oh, I see. You had like one shot and then you chopped it up after.
Yeah, so it was one full shot. And then basically like we decided we want the cut to happen, or like, you know, the fake, even though it's not really a cut, we want the split to happen here. So we like, let's see, I can zoom in. Oh shoot, now I'm like, oh, hold on, let me get rid of this because I don't know what I'm doing here. Okay, cool. And see, it really does chug a lot when I change shots because it's, you know, loading and unloading so much stuff. So let's see, 1565. So like, basically I put the cut points at the transition points, like where it's going, like above or below the water. And that way, when we went to render, rather than, you know, we could render chunk by chunk and troubleshoot and re-render those sections rather than having to render it and troubleshoot that entire thing. Does that make
Cool,
sense?
clever. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
And you're not
then,
turning, and you're also turning on lights too with this level visibility tracks?
Yeah, that the lights were also changing as well. So oh, lighting. Oh, so lighting, it was just kind of in this one, it was just, actually it wasn't through the level visibility for the lighting.
Oh, cool. Spawnable lights, I see.
Yeah, so it's all like spawnable stuff. And then hold on, I get my level back up. Yeah. And then these were, yeah, all these different levels were like the different like landscapes and settings and stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Brittany. Amazing
Yeah.
talk.
Thank you.
All right, we have a number of other questions that are here. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. Let's see if we can quickly run through a few more things. Anonymous writes, have you worked with any AI pipeline tools like Cascadeur? What are your thoughts?
I have not, sorry.
Okay. I'm beginning to think that we might have a Cascadeur fan representative in the house. Just kidding. Always asking that question. It's interesting to get that feedback. Some people are like, yes, and other people are like, haven't used it. Let's see here. What is your average tasks like during the day or week in Previz?
I mean, is this more like in relation to like my job at DreamWorks, or is this in more relation to like my own stuff? I mean,
it could be either. I would say as a Previz, working in Previz,
okay.
What would be your average day or week?
I'll focus on my own film and not really like anything with DreamWorks. But you know, at least for Previz, you know, what I love about it is like, and even when I was working on, for instance, my my fellowship short, right? Because that was literally just a chase sequence. What I love about it is like, you're just kind of, it's like sculpting or whatever. It's like you start with that little ball of clay and then you just keep adding and iterating and refining each step. So like and now I'm going to focus solely on my fellowship sequence as an example. I literally had Echo just in a running pose, and that was kind of like my blocking. And then I would trace out her path and animate her path that she would run on and make sure like the speed was okay. And then once I got like her track down, then I started dropping in cameras and like exploring, okay, what angles am I going to start seeing and how can I start kind of telling the story of her chase running away and what looks cool too. So, and then once that kind of was settled, then I could go in and start adding in like mocap animation and then lighting. And so it's just, what I like about it is like, it really early on, even when she is just in that pose, speeding through all the shots, you're still kind of getting that concept of the story from that very beginning, and then you're just kind of refining. So I don't know, that's what I love about it. I don't know if that answers your question at all, but I guess that's Yeah, cool. Okay, thanks.
All right. Unfortunately, a couple things I know that have to happen. And one, you're down in San Diego, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know you need to get on the road and drive all the way up to LA to go to work at DreamWorks today, don't you?
Yes, I am actually going in today.
Aha. So we're going to go ahead and wrap things up, I think. I know that there's a lot of other questions that folks still want to ask. Is there any way that they can get in touch with you? I know that you're on Slack, right?
Oh my gosh, I am on Slack, but I need to
You haven't signed in
activate it.
lately?
I haven't signed in lately, so I do need to get on there. But
Get back in there.
feel free to like link in with me, send me messages, and I would love to continue chatting. Also, oh my gosh, I need to say hi to Noel Meyer. Hi, Noel. Just to answer his question really quick. So I started the film from very beginning to very end. I started it in fall of 2018, and then I finished it January of 2022. But from 2018 up until when I did the fellowship in August of 2020, that was all Maya. And like, of course, like development, working with my cultural advisors, like refining the story, et cetera, right? But then once I finished the fellowship in August 2020, I, converted everything into Unreal and then submitted for the mega grant in November. And then I know they say it takes like 90 days, but they were like, hey, it's going to take longer. And I was like, well, cool, because I want to send you some updates. So in February, I sent updates to the project. And then by May of 21 is when I received news that I was receiving a mega grant, received funds in July. So basically from July of 21 until January of 22, that's like when like hardcore production was happening and I had a team. Everything was kind of like set up and ready, but then it was like amazing because people, were able to join in, and it was basically the grant was to also provide opportunities for people in the fellowship, people who were still learning Unreal. It was basically like a meaningful project that they could work on to enhance their Unreal skills. So yeah, that was it in a nutshell. So
All right.
yeah.
Well, Brittany, it's been wonderful seeing you again.
Thank you. You also.
Always nice for you to visit, and you're always welcome. And like I said, you should be back in Slack.
I know. I need to get logged in. So sorry.
That's all right. But yeah, very informative. Always nice to be able to see alternative pipelines, especially with more legacy tools like Maya. There's still a large number of animators out there who are so skilled in Maya, and they don't really want to give up that skill set, but they still want to use Unreal as well. So, things like Advanced Skeleton are nice bridging tools between those two worlds. And we really appreciate you giving us a demonstration of that technology.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really thankful to be here with you guys. And I don't know if everyone sees when I reply the answer.
Yeah.
Okay. I did just enter my LinkedIn. I don't know if someone asked. So yeah, feel free to reach out, LinkedIn, and please message me, because if you don't message me, I will not know. Even if you have any questions, of course. But yeah, thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
And I can't wait to see everyone's projects.
Oh, I know. There's some amazing work being done for this fellowship. But
is there going to be like a final showcase?
There will be, and we will invite you. It's next Friday.
Okay.
So
perfect.
You will definitely get an invitation.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to see everyone's work. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Drive safely on your way up to LA. All right.
Awesome. Thank you all.